1, 2, check, 1, 2. Hey, yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 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 check. Two, one, two, one, two. Hey, yeah. 1, 2. Check, check. Check, check. 1, 2. Hey, yeah. 1, 2. That was going out live.
here, so please bear with me, my friends and people who know me. I can feel the shared nervousness in your hearts now. Don't worry, we'll get through it together. My name is Andrew Lansley. A visual description, which was given to me by a visually impaired friend, is I look like a fuzzy egg. So kind of had an egg-shaped head. I don't know why I do this to myself. I have an egg-shaped head, kind of short-shaved hair, where Mother Nature's been doing my haircut since age 22. A little bit of beard that I timed the cut of 3 days beforehand to make sure it's at optimal length for the salt and pepper to come in. How are we doing on the description, Laura? And I also use Fuzzy Egg as my BSL name. There we go. I've got the great joy of pointing out the fire exits and doing the introductions. So I don't think we're going to have the problem that some of you who are here for the first edition of Access to Music had, that the event space gradually became a swamp during the day. I don't think we're going to have that issue here. But should this building start burning down, there's a fire exit located over there and over this side. But I think we'll probably have bigger problems if the fire kicks off in this building. We've taken notes of everyone's access requirements. I just want to double down because we don't always know what everyone needs at the time, and you might not know what you need ahead of the day. How you're feeling now might change throughout the day. If you need anything, come and find one of the team, come speak to me. Anything you might need, just let us know. All right, we want you to be comfortable today. Today's conference is in a relaxed format, which kind of means you can stand up and walk around and do what you want. You can come in, you can go out. We just really want to move away from that conference format where it's really formalized. The whole point of today is about connection and about building and developing the community that we share. So please, please, please make sure that you connect with people today and that you feel completely at ease doing whatever you want. I think half the point I like to do a nervous speech at the start is so that you kind of get the idea of the level today. There's just a couple of notes about moving around the building today. So on the first floor, we'll have our breakout space where our live events, roundtables will be happening. And on the top floor, we've got an incredible toy and tech room where so many of the organizations who have joined us today have brought an amazing collection and so much that despite the best efforts of coordination, we've run out of space and needed to get more tables to put more kit on this morning. So our roundtables for music technology and education will be on the top floor this afternoon. So I encourage you to go in there during the breaks as well and have a look at some of the kit that's there for you to have a play around with. Also outside, because of the way that the doors work and security in this building, there is an accessible lift, which you can find as you move out the door on the left. Rosie, Charlotte or Jack, the team here at Hub 8. Rosie, give us a wave. There we are. Hi, Rosie. Just chat to one of those guys and they'll swipe you through so you can get up and down, all right? And then Tom and the team here, they'll be looking after AV, so they'll be miking you up, the people who are kind of coming around. For the roundtables this afternoon as well, we will be filming them and we'll be passing a mic around those rooms as well. They will be scribed, but they won't be broadcast. So welcome to our live stream listeners and viewers. The live stream is going to go throughout all the talks today past lunch, but we are going to not live stream this afternoon. We want to have some really good, deep conversations with our delegates here in this space. I just to kind of like hand over a little bit to our first group. Before I do that, sorry, I just kind of wanted to say what Access to Music is, because I was thinking last night and a bit this morning about what I wanted to say, because I don't often get to assemble a lot of my friends and soon-to-be new friends in a room once a year. And Access to Music for me exists so that we can meet and discuss. There's a load of amazing conferences and events run out throughout the UK by people in this room already. The job of this conference isn't to do anything those things are doing, but to amplify them and to signpost them. It is about celebrating and about amplifying the work that is undergoing from people in this room. I also know that there's a spectrum of experiences in this room. We have people who are genuine lever holders and can make sector and industry change happen. We also have people here who are new to their careers. I want you people specifically to know that you've got the power too, okay? The fact that we are in this room to share and talk together is incredibly important. One of the bits of feedback we got last year was that how a great sense of community this conference was, but at the same time, how some people felt that there was like a really, really good group and they didn't feel they could quite get in. So please can I encourage those of us who know each other, try and find someone you don't know and talk to them. For those of you that might be new to Access to Music this year, please come and talk to all of us, okay? Everyone in here is super friendly and it's a wicked community, so I just want to, again, double down and make sure that you guys know that you should connect. So, I asked my wife and she kind of said, well, just make sure you tell them why you're doing Access to Music when you stand up there tomorrow. So that's the reason. It's to connect, it's to celebrate, and to make sure the community has an opportunity to stick something in the ground once a year, connect and continue the conversations and work we all do all year round outside of this room. She said, tell them how hard you've worked. So I thought, well, that's probably just a little bit selfish. So kind of like, I don't see myself as making anything new. I see myself as making glue. So again, I think I want everyone to kind of take today to think about how hard you work and to take this time to connect with people that we normally just see on screens for most of our professional careers. And then really that's it. I want us to take a day to kind of celebrate and communicate. So that's kind of how we've designed the day, is to really intersect these conversations in very different ways. And I know there's a lot of people thinking, come on, Andrew, that's enough talking. So let's get on with the conference. So I would love to do that. And I'm going to welcome to the stage the Mary Alice Stack and the Inclusive Music Consortium to give us an update on their work. That's right, Albie.
Good morning, everyone. Is this working? Yes. My name is Mary Alice Stack, and I am the Chief Executive at Creative United. And I'm going to speak for 3 minutes. Oh, hello, good morning. Just for a few minutes about the consortium and how it came together. And I'm on the stage with Rachel Wolfson from the OMI Trust, and also Sarah Fisher, who is part of the consortium. So we're going to, we haven't rehearsed, we're going to tag team this. I'm going to do the first few minutes, then hand over to Rachel, and then Sarah's going to say a few words also. So the Inclusive Music Consortium was brought together about 7 or 8 years ago by Creative United. It was a way of Creative United beginning to connect more directly with organisations who have a specialism in music and disability access and inclusion. So Creative United itself is a community interest company. We do lots of different programmes and initiatives designed to create a more inclusive arts and cultural sector, looking at financial inclusion as a kind of key objective, but also having met Rachel, thinking about disability access. So we knew that we didn't know very much about disability access and inclusion in music, so we invited a number of other organisations to join us as a consortium that we could share information, educate each other, and help advance the needs and opportunities of disabled musicians and in music education as well. So there are 6 organisations who are part of the consortium: Creative United, the OMI Trust, Drake Music, Music for Youth, Youth Music, and Time, Technology and Music Education. And together we meet quarterly and we share information and update each other on new developments. And our objectives as a consortium are primarily around the provision of accessible musical instruments and assistive technology. So we're interested in understanding the existing and potential demand for those instruments and pieces of equipment. We're also wanting to educate and skill up people in the sector to understand what's out there, how to use it, and help others to find what works for them. We also want to make sure that disabled musicians are more visible, and that their practice is understood by others as a source of inspiration, ideas, confidence about getting up on stage and performing, and also to encourage young people in education to begin their musical journey, whatever it might be. So we're looking all the time at many different aspects around the industry itself, so the design, production and supply of the instruments themselves, how they're used, where they're used, and then showcasing the talent that we have within this country and beyond, so that our musical community becomes more diverse and enriched by a wider variety of musicians playing a wider range of instruments. And so through that work, we hope to really see change. I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who's going to talk about why this is important in terms of adapted instruments in particular.
Our slice of the pie is looking at traditional instruments. So if I was to ask everybody in the room to name me an instrument, you might name me, trumpets, violins, pianos, that kind of thing. That's what we do. We leave the novel things to the experts at Drake and Time and other places. OMI has been going since 2013, and it was in response to the founder, Stephen Hetherington, had a daughter who was born with cerebral palsy. He was a professional musician. She went to school, said she wanted to play something, and they said because of her left hemiplegia that she couldn't. And that didn't seem to be the right response or the right situation. So he set up OMI, and initially we had a competition, well, we still have a competition to find instruments. And many of those instruments were developed for individuals who had played regular instruments and then life got in the way. So people who've had strokes, amputations, similar. And so they knew that the instrument that they wanted to get back to playing, and they worked very hard with makers, often investing lots of time and money in making those instruments. And then it sat with that maker and nobody else knew about it. So the competition's been a really good route of finding out what's out there. I'm delighted that James Risdon is here this morning because he was one of our judges this year, and he can tell you all about all the instruments that we saw this time round. However, there's also the group of children who are born with conditions who never got going, and we've done a lot of work initially with Creative United and with other partners as we've gone on, looking at how many children in school are excluded from music making. And certainly in England, and I can't imagine the rest of the UK is different, 90% of children with physical impairments are in mainstream schools. And yet when we ask the music services what they're doing for children with disabilities, every single one of them that bothered to respond, which was a small percentage, told us all about the work they're doing in special schools. Obviously that's needed as well, but it's both, not either or. So that's the kind of work we're doing, and how, why it's so important that we're all here gathered today, and why the consortium is working really hard to bring all those different pieces of the pie across the organisations together to try and make a more complete view. And I'm going to hand on to Sarah, who's one of our practitioners.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Fisher. I'm a freelance community musician. So I play percussion and I play piano. And as you can see, I'm also disabled. I'm a wheelchair user now, but I never used to be up until last year. But I have cerebral palsy, so obviously I was born with that. So I've always been into music, and I have a career now as a freelance community musician. But there's still lots and lots of barriers that I face, and more so now. And being a part of the consortium means that I can share that lived experience from, being a young child in mainstream education. And I learned piano, but I learned it my way, which, I can't use all 10 fingers, but I can use 7. And that's the approach that I now use in my practice, which is called A way, not the way, and that everyone has a way to learn and engage in music. It might not necessarily be the way that your peripatetic teachers are saying, but every person has the ability to find a way to play. And also within my career, I deliver inclusion training to open up people's eyes to seeing different ways of approaching music and inclusion. and go out for Drake music as well, which is the hat that I have on today as well, not literally. And I'm also a performer, and I'm happy to speak about my disability and my lived experience, and I do that through comedy and stand-up, minus the stand-up. Ding ding. So that's how I get across a lot of the time, but being a freelance musician is hard for anyone. Being a disabled freelance musician is even harder. But within the consortium, it's having the organisations that we've named means that I can almost be a stepping stone with them. And my voice isn't just one little fish in the sea. Having the organisations means that I can hopefully give them the information to shout wider. And I know that I'm not the only one with this experience, but I'm one of the few that are happy to share that experience. But music education hasn't really changed for disabled people. In my experience, there are still young people that are not allowed to access music because of a disability, and because people aren't confident enough to give it a go and work with the person. Each person, as I say in my inclusion practice training, each young person has the ability. You got to find it, and by doing that, by communicating and just giving it a go, you're gonna find a way. And any way it can be found, however you get there, they're gonna find it. So being a part of the IMC means that I can be a voice and hopefully, be the visibility that is needed more and more in society.
Thanks, Sarah. That's it. So just final word, I know we're probably running over, is to say if you want any more information about the consortium, or if you would like to come as a guest speaker and join one of our meetings and share what you do, we'd love to hear from you. In the first instance, if you just email info@creativeunited.org.uk, put IMC in the subject line, I'll pick that up and I'll get back to you, and we'll see if we can arrange that. But thank you for listening, and thank you, Sarah and Rachel, for sharing your side of the story too. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel, Sarah, and Mary Alice. Can I have another round of applause, please? Thank you. Thank you, Albie. It's very much welcomed. Thank you. Okay, so just as we set up for our keynote speaker of the day, who I couldn't secure for the first Access to Music, so I was absolutely overjoyed when we had the opportunity to book a living legend for Access to Music this year. One of the great challenges that faces us isn't just in access to music, but the sustainability of music, and actually making sure that it's around forever is probably a good way to make sure it's available to everyone to be around forever as well. So those two kind of challenges are interlinked. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the stage today to deliver our keynote, Suzanne Bull, MBE.
This year's conference, a purple piano for Access to Music conference, and for the Cheltenham Festival's white flag in a pink box. And I'm a middle-aged disabled woman sitting in a manual wheelchair. I've got brown, grey, shoulder-length hair, and I'm wearing glasses. I've just taken them off because I can't read with them on. And I'm a vision in pink today with my Tata Divine Alan Measles necklace. So there you go. Can I have slide 2, please? So I'm a creative consultant supporting disability diversity in arts and culture, climate sustainability and cancer patient advocacy. And I've lived experience of disability and living with a cancer diagnosis. And I've more than 30 years professional experience of working in arts and culture. And I founded the charity Attitude is Everything 25 years ago. Hello to some Attitude is Everything colleagues here and all the future leaders as well. Hello. And for the last 2 years of my role, I became their environmental champion, leading on their environmental responsibility programme. So slide 3. So what prompted me to join the sustainability conversation? Well, on this slide is a selfie pose of me in a small brick-walled garden. It's dusk and the garden lights are on. I'm sitting under a parasol at a table and my hair is in bunches. I'm wearing a sleeveless dress and I'm smiling. And this is summer 2020 and I look very content there. But actually I was seriously ill. I'd been diagnosed with breast cancer in the March, and because of the pandemic my operation got postponed and I was put into the clinically extremely vulnerable group. But what I noticed from my small city garden was that the air was much cleaner and that being in nature was a great comfort to me. But the other side of this was that I saw lots of things like the creation of low traffic neighbourhoods, areas completely shut down to cars that were just making life really difficult for disabled people. We were definitely out of sight and definitely out of mind. And I couldn't be active except for on social media because I was isolating at home. So as soon as I returned from my sickness absence, I started shaping Attitude is Everything's environmental programme. I wanted to prevent sustainability solutions from being yet another barrier for disabled people wanting to participate in music and live events. Have slide 4, please. So there are 1 billion disabled people in the global population. Disabled people would experience the impact of climate change really hugely. We're more likely than other groups to die in disasters. We saw that in the recent LA fires. We find it harder to leave our homes if we're evacuated due to climate dangers as well. Yet we're never included in the climate change conversation, or the decision making, or the solutions. As the slogan goes, there's no music on a dead planet, but actually there's also no access on a dead planet either. The next slide. So when I started at Attitude is Everything, there was this attitude amongst the music industry that disabled people might not be interested in going to gigs and festivals, and obviously we all know that's a myth. And then when I started the sustainability programme, the myth resurfaced slightly differently. I was asked, but are disabled people really interested in saving the planet? So let me describe, I know. Let me describe the 2 photos on the slide, which are credited to the Metro newspaper. The left photo shows 2 policemen guarding a pile of equipment, including wheelchair, tents and flags, and they're protected by barriers, and this is in central London. The right photo shows 3 people, 2 of them visibly disabled, holding a banner which says, "Give us back our access kit." One is shouting into a megaphone. They're positioned outside Scotland Yard. These photos show what happened at 2019's Extinction Rebellion protest, when police seized disabled people's items, including wheelchairs, accessible compost toilets, and noise-cancelling headphones. And some disabled people were arrested. Next slide, please. So I knew that there was a way to include disabled people in live event sustainability, but Attitude is Everything couldn't affect change alone. And we just didn't have these expertise. So we chose to partner with 2 leading UK sustainability organisations in arts, culture and live music, Julie's Bicycle and A Greener Future. So they brought the sustainability expertise and we brought the access expertise. And this partnership continued into the 2nd year, and we also started working with Sarah Pickthall from Sync Leadership to create additional resources for disabled artists. And it gave us the opportunity as a sector to approach access and sustainability more holistically with connected policies and solutions across different focus areas. But there was also an important guiding principle, and this is on the slide. Sometimes there might not be a solution yet that is both accessible and environmentally friendly, but disabled people should never be blamed or shamed for this. Next slide, please. So this is the cover of the toolkit that we produced together in Attitude is Everything's brand colours, white, yellow and black. And the text says, no climate action without us, how to include disabled people in live event sustainability. And at the bottom of the page are the logos of Attitude is Everything, Julie's Bicycle, A Greener Future, and Arts Council England, who funded the programme. And during year one of the programme, Julie's Bicycle conducted a public survey of disabled audiences, artists and producers on their attitudes to climate change, and hosted 2 round tables with venue and event managers, promoters, sustainability managers, access managers and disabled people. Meanwhile, A Greener Future carried out 3 festival case studies at Green Man, Shambhala and Forwards Festival. And the outcome of the conversations and the case studies meant that we had a wealth of evidence to create this new toolkit. Some of the more striking outcomes were that many survey respondents struggled to identify environmental initiatives that they had come across that were accessible. 68% of disabled people surveyed said that sustainability actually is a consideration when choosing which events to go to. And I just chose like 3 key themes where action was needed. That was travel and transport, accessible facilities, communication and participation. And we discovered actually the sector recognised that there were issues and there was actually an appetite to do things differently, which is always great. I thought it'd be helpful if I gave one example of a problem and then its solution for each of the key areas. So travel and transport, one example, initiatives to make tickets cheaper for people using public transport can penalise disabled people who may be unable to use public or shared transport options. Well, the solution is to make sure that any transport initiatives don't make it more expensive for disabled attendees who need to drive, and work with local authorities to provide more accessible electric shared public transport options. Accessible facilities, one example, disabled people didn't have access to recycling facilities. The immediate solution is to make sure viewing platforms and accessible camping areas have recycling facilities which are clearly signposted. Then communication and participation. This is a barrier that we should have foreseen, but we didn't. So example, sustainability information is idealistic and it uses jargon and unfamiliar technology. If you can't, terminology. If you can't understand what's being asked of you, then how can you take action? The solution, share simple, clear sustainability information alongside access information and produce information in accessible formats. And just as an aside, all of the resources associated with Attitude is Everything's sustainability programme are in accessible formats. Easy read, BSL video, etc. Next slide, please. So in year 2 of the programme, we asked festivals and events to practice using the toolkit and report their progress back to us by September 2024. And from their evidence, we updated the toolkit and reissued it in February 2025. I'm pleased to say that some progress was made, and we collected many examples such as wheelchair accessible compost toilets, wooden picnic tables with space for wheelchair users, that's what you did, Andrew, and large print menus that became the standard for everyone across one festival. The updated toolkit contained all manner of new ideas. Just want to check with Andrew, are we on time? We a good time?
We're a little behind, but
okay.
I'm kind of into this. So
okay, all right.
Lots of breaks, so we can bunch up.
Okay, so the 3 case studies were updated. The festivals progressed in terms of integrating sustainability with access. For speed, I'm just going to give you an example of Green Man. They had an unexpected benefit when they introduced trial waste separation signage, and physical examples of waste were secured to each bin. And this proved unexpectedly beneficial because people with visual impairments and people with a learning disability were able to touch and see and understand the correct disposal place for waste. But really what I want to come on to is the Year 2 programme. I mentioned that we worked with Sarah Pickthall to create some resources for disabled artists so that they can make their practice and touring more sustainable. There were similar ways of evidence gathering, a public survey, 2 roundtable discussions with emerging and established artists. And as part of this work, Sarah created 2 international case studies, Lucas Hornby from Camp, working in France, and Chris Yoshi from Slow Label in Japan. And these are disabled artists working in music who are exploring access and sustainability together in their work and practices. Next slide, please. So within the disabled artist resource, the artist echoed that there's no climate justice without disability justice. They wanted the music industry to meet their access requirements and to understand why sometimes it's really difficult for them to be both accessible and sustainable in their practice. Again, the issue of complicated jargon and language associated with sustainability came up as a barrier that prevented artists from taking action. I wanted to highlight a concept that disabled artists created, the Green Access Rider. This merges the Green and Access Riders that are currently completely 2 separate documents into one document where disabled artists can share their access needs and their values on the climate change together. Next slide, please. So, Slow Label. I'm now turning my attention to the international case studies, in particular Slow Label's Earth Pieces. The image on this slide, provided by Slow Label, shows an orchestra made up of both disabled and non-disabled musicians smiling and waving and holding up their instruments for the photo, which has been taken from a high position looking down on the orchestra. Here are some words about Earth Pieces from Chris Yoshi, the disabled artistic director. The work of Slow Label has historically been seen in a disability context, focusing on access, inclusion and representation. I felt that I wanted to expand thinking and practice to raise greater awareness of both access and environmental sustainability through a music project. Next slide, please. Now, I know that there's a lot of text on this slide, but I wanted to include the whole of Chris's explanation of why she created Earth Pieces. In Japan, the disproportionate impact of climate change on disabled people is more critical because we have ongoing and pressing climate change challenge with earthquakes and flooding as a regular feature of our lives. These present huge concerns for disabled people and their supporters in Japan, and also for other marginalised groups. Issues ranging from understanding climate information to accessing safe shelters. So the importance of raising awareness on sustainability is even more pressing. This project is a way of developing awareness of the debate about and the development of inclusive disaster risk reduction. Japan. Japan is ranked 3rd in 2025's World GDP, Gross Domestic Product. Remember the LA fires? 3 disabled people died in these fires because their evacuation wasn't planned ahead by the LA Fire Department. I also know anecdotally of a wheelchair user who lost their accessible home and all of their equipment. LA, as you all know, is in the US, the highest ranked of 2025's World GDP. This is why we need to act now to include disabled people in climate change conversations and the co-creation of solutions. Last slide, please, I believe. Yes. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Andrew Lansley and Cheltenham Festivals for having me. And there probably isn't time for me to read out the details of my contact on the rest of the day, but I'm around the rest of the day if you want to talk more. I'll be with you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Everyone, in case we can't be taking notes hyper quickly, we will have the conference information shared about a week after this. So what Suzanne's just put up on the screen, what Mary Alice shared for follow-ups with the Inclusive Music Consortium, we will share those in about a week or so. So we will start to welcome our first panel for the day. So as things start to shift and move around me, the panel that we're holding now is really to start to dissect the grassroots ecosystem. There's a growing conversation with musicians and music practitioners from all around the UK with regards to where is the disabled voice within the grassroots conversation. So very, very luckily, we've got an absolute who's who of people working within these areas. Thank you, Matthew. This is wonderful. Are we right to get the table down off here? Is that right? Thank you. Okay. It's very much DIY changeover. Sorry, Phil. You do need another chair, yeah. Okay. They want to keep it. You want to keep the table? Okay, we're keeping the table. Okay. Thank you. Right, 2 minutes.
It is, yes. Cool.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello.
Okay.
1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2.
That's not coming through at all. You got the right one? Yeah. You talking?
1, 2, 1, 2. My name's Matt Griffiths. Testing the microphone.
That one is the one that's coming through. Chat for us?
Yeah, my name's Matt Griffiths. Just testing microphones. Oh, there's something happening now. Something's happening. Feels a bit howly. My name's Matt Griffiths. Just
Back to my broadcast days, Matt.
better? Thank you. 1, 2, 1, 2. Checking this all works. That's better. All right. Straight. All right. Can you hear me? Yeah. Fantastic. Bear with. Great to see you all. Really nice to be here. Thank you to Andrew for inviting us to do the first panel today. My name is Matt Griffiths. I'm the CEO of Youth Music. My pronouns are he, him. I'm 6'2". I've got a beard and I wear glasses, and I'm wearing quite a fancy, pretty green top this morning. Ooh! Thank you, everybody. So really good to be here. We've been asked really to look at the current state of the grassroots ecosystem and where disabled artists can find their voice. Designed to be quite interactive as well, so we'll have a chance for questions, and I hope the panel can interact as well, so we can get a bit of a discussion going this morning. We've got a great panel, really fantastic panel. I'm just going to hand it over to them just to start us off and introduce themselves. So.
Hello everyone, I'm David Court. I am 6'1". I'm 56 years old. I'm bald, bearded, wearing glasses, a little bit lonely and carrying a bit too much holiday weight. I'm wearing a white shirt and I'm going to hand on now. I'm the joint CEO of Super Jam Education.
I am Bija Gorja, Inclusive Communities Manager at Attitude of Everything, and our organisation works with the live events industry, audiences, artists and professionals to improve access for deaf, disabled and neurodivergent people. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a white femme person in my late 20s. I'm wearing a black cap with my hair tied back. I have a short fringe and mousy brown hair, and I'm wearing a grey grey waistcoat, black trousers and a white t-shirt with checkerboard bands and lots of tattoos.
Good morning, my name is Eunice Obianaga. I'm the Head of Diversity at UK Music, which is the umbrella voice for the music industry. We represent the various trade bodies across the industry, from recording, artists, publishing, the list goes on. And I am a metabolic age of 36, I've been told, but in my 40s. Black woman with braids, wearing khaki safari suit, and that's me.
Hi, I'm Phil Castang, CEO of Music for Youth. He, him, pale, male, glasses, 5 foot nothing. Music for Youth is a charity that showcases the brilliance of young musicians.
Fantastic. So, examine the current state of the grassroots ecosystem and where disabled artists can find their voice. So just to sort of set the scene, let's get some action going today. Let's get some real actions going today, because in some ways, boy, isn't it tough? With all the cuts, government policies, and the kind of rhetoric around anti-EDI is kind of growing. So we need to do something about that. And we've got power in numbers here today. So we can chat about it, which we'll do today, but we're really keen to be all doing something about it, because we need to be bold, right? We need to be really bold at this particular moment in time. And I think with this panel, with yourselves and all of us, we can really make a difference. So I think it's boldness and it's action. And if we can get that today, we're going to have to really shout and turn up the volume on all this stuff, particularly with some of the rhetoric that's going on at the moment, which, as we can all say, is disgraceful. So with that in mind, we're also a group of change makers. By doing the work we have to do, you're always affecting change. So you're making change and you're doing something about it. So with that change making, hopefully we can see a picture, we can see a future where this could look really, really amazing, putting the creativity of disabled artists on and off stage, right at the centre of Creativity UK. So there is a vision, we've got to articulate that, and we're going to have to jump through all sorts of significant hoops to get there. So I'm talking about action, I'm talking about being bold, and actually painting a picture about what the future could look like if we get this right, and we have to get it right. So my questions are around that, and when it comes to the floor, have a think about that yourself. What would you like to ask us? And indeed, what are you and your organisation doing to affect change? So to start that off, maybe I could start with you, Phil. With Music for Youth, the current top priorities for Music for Youth in terms of supporting disabled artists and creatives.
So I've been at Music for Youth for 2.5, nearly 3 years. When I started, so Music for Youth showcases young musicians. We have about 30,000 young musicians take part each year. When I first started, we had one disabled group take part in our entire programme. That disabled group was brilliant, is brilliant, and they came back every year. So it was the same group of young disabled musicians every year. We've just done our impact report for last year, and now 15% of that 30,000 young participants identify as disabled. So that's just in about 2 years, the first 2 years. So we've changed the dynamic of the whole programme in order to make ourselves able to receive young musicians, to support young musicians have the same opportunities, and we now want to implement a program whereby we also run the event, young people run the events as well, backstage roles, because being a musician, nearly all musicians are only musicians some of the time. There's very few musicians who get to be musicians 100% of the time, and it's the other roles that enable us to stay connected to music. And those are also administrative roles, backstage roles, presenting roles, educational roles. We want to now have a program whereby we can start to bring those young disabled musicians into the other wraparound roles that will give them a taste of the industry more comprehensively, and so they can, if they're not performing, they can still be in and around music with those other roles.
Kind of embedding it, yeah? Going even further with what you've done already, yeah?
Embedding and going further, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Same question, Eunice, in terms of UK music, trade organisation, membership organisations, significant in the UK for the music industry. Same question to yourself?
So I think from our perspective, we work a lot with policymakers and MPs, and we run what's called an APPG, so all-party parliamentary group, where one of my colleagues describes them as fan clubs for different subjects. So we coordinate the music one, which is a group of MPs, and we brief them. So for us as an advocacy organisation, our priorities are really about being able to influence the MPs and the policymakers. And last year before last, we released a music manifesto, which outlined our priorities for the music industry. And in the area of diversity and disability, our priority was about reducing the wait time for access to work, and how that can be challenged. And it was also around the disability pay gap and making sure that took place and that was being addressed, but also if we could reduce it from 250 organisations of 250 to 50 where possible. So those are our headlines. Alongside that, we, as I mentioned, we're an umbrella for the different trade bodies for the industry. I'll maybe speak about this a bit later, but it's also encouraging those trade bodies and their members also to consider disability in their work as well.
Yeah. And do you get the sense with your membership that they're A, really getting it, and B, doing something about it, so it doesn't sometimes appear tokenistic?
I can speak for the trade bodies that are part of the organised, but are part under UK Music, and obviously they represent the other networks. We have launched a number of different initiatives, should I call them, which really aim to target fast track diversity, really. One of them was in 2020 called the 10-point plan, and it mandated our 10 member organisations to effectively address diversity across, within 2 years' time, across 10 different points. And that included training, it included senior management as well, and looking at what is the makeup of your senior management. So yeah, we are trying our best to hold people accountable and organisations accountable, so it isn't tokenistic, because that doesn't work for anybody.
Thank you. And B, same question for you?
Yeah, of course. So at Attitude is Everything, we do have our artist network, which is called Next Stage. But through that work, we advocate for artists and also look at different kind of support mechanisms that already exist as a foundation. And I think that's what's really important, is that when advocating specifically for artists, we need to look at the legalities, we need to look at the requirements that are there and really start with the basics, and then we can forge forward. So like you said, Eunice, like looking at the disability pay gap, at basic level, making sure that we're working in line with musicians' union rates for disabled artists as well as any other artist. Ensuring that artist access riders are understood and implemented by the industry. And I think there is some pressure and conversations that we can have with the industry to get them to understand that that is their legal requirement. It's not just something that we're asking for that's difficult or to be a diva. It's actually their responsibility to do. And similarly with that, like understanding what reasonable adjustments are and how they can support with that, not just saying we're going to put them in place, being practical with it, making sure that they're asking. It's not on the disabled person to ask as an artist and advocate for themselves. So ensuring that that best practice is in place to then build on it, So building showcasing opportunities and grants for access support into artist development programs would be the next step in that, and ensuring that also organisations running those programs are running them in an effective and accountable way. And I think that's the key thing at the moment with artist work, is making sure that the knowledge is there, but also that we're holding people to account with it as well. And often artists can fall as kind of an afterthought because we think about the paying customer, but actually there's a lot of work we need to do behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. And the holding people to account and organisations, that's a really interesting one, because Attitudes Everything is like, driving this, is the expert in this. Mm-hmm. But you need allies, but you need more than allies, you need the change makers. Are you seeing that, or is it a constant push? Rather than your allies really affecting change too?
It's an interesting one. There's definitely push, and when I say push, I mean so in my role I work more kind of on the industry side of things, but I also work with communities, and it's really interesting. Like there's sometimes things just drop off, just lands, and it doesn't go anywhere. And I think there's a big thing around people being so scared of doing accessibility work that they freeze. And the issue with that is that nobody knows that you're having those issues. You're not actually communicating that you're trying. And I think people need to kind of get over this thing of being scared to try, and they need to vocalize what they're doing, because starting with actually caring is something, and having a conversation in a two-way street. But the amount of, there's statistics out there. I think it's something, there was a survey that was done, around 60% of people actually don't communicate with disabled people because they're too scared. And it's like, well, let's start there. Let's just start a conversation, and then again, we can build on it. So I think the allies that are out there are really strong, and everyone on this stage, Attitude is Everything works with. It's amazing to have that, but it's the people that aren't communicating that we need to put that pressure on, I think. And to kind of build our allyship together and be a united front.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And David, in terms of Super Jam and what you're delivering and the education programs that you're delivering, kind of the priorities for you at this point?
It's slightly different. We've got 4 colleges. All of our students are aged 16 to 25. All of them are disabled in some form. And our focus is really on a clear structured pathway from learning to earning. So we are talking about how we can support those students, how we can give them that support going on from further education, either into higher education or into paid roles into the music industry. And it's really hard. It's obviously the bigger we get, the more colleges we have, then the more the music industry gets to hear about us and we get opportunities. But it is a real uphill battle.
And what's the heart of the battle? If you were to sum it up?
I think it's actually breaking down the doors of the music industry. And also the funding method that the Department for Education use is on a retrospective model. So our growth this year is we grow by 60 students this year.
Right.
However, the Department for Education expect us to fund that. So we never get paid for that. We never get paid back for that. So you imagine 60 students, all with special educational needs. That's about £1.2 million worth of funding, and we have to fund that. And it's nonsense. And that's the big battle that I'm going to hopefully fight next year.
So that's like a cash flow thing in a way, is it? It's sort of, get it eventually.
That's nuts. We've had the potential for investment. So we could have 20 colleges all helping young adults with SEN get into the music industry. But we can't do that because of the model that the Department for Education used.
Okay. And DFE is your main government department that you're working with?
Yeah, and the local authorities, who are brilliant, who actually support us in year, but that puts the pressure on them then.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting how significant institutions create the significant barrier, just something like that. So how can we operate effectively day to day? That's one thing that could probably change.
Yeah.
But it's going to need all of us to kind of point that out, right?
Yeah. If you could all write letters for me.
That
would be great.
Anyone on the panel, anything else to sort of say about this first question in terms of priorities of what you've heard? Eunice.
The only thing I was going to add is just based on what you've both said, is that I think in the music industry there isn't really a clear pathway into music anyway. So I think prioritising pathways, especially with people who have other barriers, is really important, because if you're in a field then there's no path for anybody, how are you going to find your way if you've got extra barriers on top of that? So I think you're doing great work in terms of trying to outline what are the steps. Yeah.
We did some research at Youth Music called Industry Connect about what are the young people needing to progress in the industry, particularly those facing barriers and those who are marginalised. And one of the key things was this thing about flight paths rather than pipeline. You know, the terminology has been this pipeline, almost as if it's linear, that you start here and you go here and you go here. And we all know it's a flight path. It's pathways that we need to help young people navigate, even more so if they're facing barriers. And one of the key things was around this was like mentorship. So learning about that industry, we've probably all got experiences of this. How did we all get into it? There was probably somebody along the way that we might not have described as a mentor, but was showing us those steps. In my case, it was my percussion teacher that taught me about how to become a musician and play percussion. And it feels like that's what you provide at Super Jam, a sort of sense of mentorship, but that needs to be more scaled to help with the particular circumstances of each individual. I don't know if you've got any comment about that. Yeah, Phil.
Yeah. So when I started in the industry as a sound engineer, there was something called, this was in the 80s, there was something called a Youth Opportunity Scheme, which was a slightly sort of a version of an apprenticeship, but much more ubiquitous, much broader, that you know, thousands and thousands of young people could join. And it was essentially, it would pay the employer to employ you and to train you up. And I feel that this is something that we're really missing now, a kind of a version or a much, much easier to implement apprenticeship scheme that is specifically for industry careers, music industry careers, and also just for young musicians who want to play music. You could be in a band then, and that was your youth opportunity scheme. I mean, imagine just being paid a wage to just be in a band. I mean, that was why it was such a rich period musically. So I think we really need something like that. In fact, that's what I'm calling for. Calling for that.
Can I chip in there as well?
Yeah, of course, be.
So
Yeah,
this
go
is
for it.
taking my attitudes, everything hat off for a moment. I come from a background of studying music in higher education, but also working in higher education as well before this role. And I think the glaringly obvious thing for me is that, so I worked in widening participation. So I oversaw 5 different groups of marginalised students. How can anyone be an expert in 5 different groups and that be one role for one? But also, we're talking about kind of bursaries and slinging money at people, but what's really missing is that mentorship again. Yeah. It's that interaction, that human contact. And I think something that we do at Attitude is Everything that is really positive is that we have a Future Leaders scheme. A lot of them actually are in the room here, and we give them opportunities to go and connect with industry professionals. They get a mentor, and that person as well will be aligned with what they're wanting to explore. It will also be a case that there's disability representation. And I think that's another part, is that when I was working in education, I could only be the representation for the disabled community or the queer community, but I couldn't be representation for everyone. And I think there needs to be a change in higher education as well, and this is me speaking personally from experience, that we need to think about the diversity of staff, as always in higher education, but we also need to think about who we're pairing people up with, like, is there shared experience there? And we need to look at it through a holistic lens much more.
Exactly. And it occurs to me, we've got the ingredients of lots of really good practice going on, but it's about scale and strategy now, a kind of national strategy around this idea of a national music strategy that really brings together these elements that can then be scaled, rather than the government reinventing wheels and coming up with something supposedly new, which is always a real danger when a new government gets in. They want to do something shiny and call it something else. I think we've got the solutions and ingredients in this room. It's about it being able to be scaled so it becomes so-called more mainstream, really. Just like the Super Jam model, like there's growth there.
Absolutely.
And it could be accelerated, yeah?
Yeah. Love it to be accelerated. We'd love it to be all over the country. We'd love to be, because then the voice becomes louder.
Yeah.
That's when we all get heard. And
Yeah.
that's when more and more opportunities arise.
Yeah, and with governments like scrabbling around with all this often, I think they're looking to us to come with some really neat solutions that the ministers then go, got it.
Yeah.
Rather than maybe sometimes sectors in music can do, government give us money, which is true, but actually they also want solutions, then I think the money might follow. So it just occurred to me when we were planning this, that this could get really scaled, but the solutions come from here. I don't know if anyone's got a thought on that.
We have a new government. I think this time last year we were thinking, oh, we're going to have a new government, aren't we?
Oh yeah, in the tent.
Yeah, in the tent. If we survive this storm, we're going to have a new government, in theory. And we did survive, and we did get a new government, and we know they're going to tear up everything that happened before, because who wants to be associated with 15 years of a Tory government, unless, of course, that's how you vote. So they're going to tear that up and start with a blank sheet of paper. So there is an opportunity here for all of us, and if we can capture the sentiment that is expressed throughout today and feed that back through a mechanism to government, then we can solicit change.
Yeah. I'll just open it up. Is this feasible, Andrew? If you open it up, has anyone got any like burning observations or thoughts so far? Yes, fantastic. That's really good. We haven't got a mic to you, but actually, oh yeah, if you could just say who you are and then let us know what you want to say.
Access for younger musicians.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the generations of older disabled musicians who have not been able to find roots in and are still on the fringes and are still feeling like they are never going to find a route in, and they don't have those schemes, those targeted emerging artist schemes, because they're too old to be classed as emerging anymore? What are your thoughts on those, and how can we address that as an issue?
Exactly. Eunice from a UK Music, because in a way you've got 3 youth organisations here, but then UK Music, the kind of whole spectrum. So maybe Eunice to start?
I'm going to not give you great news. I think, and let me take my UK Music hat off, I think there are a lot of schemes for young adults. There really are. And I think there's a general problem of there not being enough support for people in mid to senior positions anyway. So then again, it makes, we've got then yet another barrier to another barrier on top of that. And so I think that it is about the industry recognising that that is an issue, and actually how are we creating spaces for progression if you're already in, and how are we creating space if you're not in, and recognising that there is talent there even if you're a bit older. So it's not a complete answer, but I think it's actually just us capturing this in this forum and saying we need to challenge that.
Yeah.
I'd also say come and chat to us at Attitude is Everything, because we've got so many different things going on, from mystery shopping, we've also got festival volunteering, we've also got placements that go on, so there isn't really an age parameter on the work that we do, and it's a case by case basis of what people need, and that's what we're there for. So yeah, advert here to go speak to Attitude is Everything.
Yeah. Thank you for your question, really good one. And the person in front of you.
Sorry, hold on to it.
Yeah. Hiya.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm here with Attitude is Everything, but I'm from Made with Music in Leeds.
Yeah.
And I just was thinking about higher education, and I know that doesn't answer the question of older people or the routes to higher education, but we've got some lovely little partnerships with like Leeds Conservatoire, with the university, like Music and Business Masters, Music and Wellbeing Masters, and I just think the students we're getting through are more diverse, they are disabled, they are more understanding of this new world that we're living in, they care, they're empathetic, and I just think like training at that stage before they go into all the varied careers in music, they take that kind of awareness with them. And they're so open and they're so willing to share that I've just been like blown away by the kind of talent in that room. So working with musicians at that stage at the conservatoire before they go on to whatever they go on to, you know, they're thinking, oh, we went to a gig that was fully accessible and we worked with you to like find out how that worked for everyone that was there. We went to a music group that was an inclusive music group for 8+ and learned how to workshop lead and start from everyone's skills and everyone's interests and make music from there rather than doing something to them.
Yeah.
And they've just got all those skills to take into whether they become technicians, whether they become event managers, that's always in the back of their brain. So I just think that is, it's just such a lovely cohort of individuals at that stage, and they're just at the start of their careers that it's just been wonderful to see. So I was just kind of echoing that point about higher education and how it's, I mean, obviously we need to do a lot to get people there.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. David?
I was just going to say, I think I totally hear your first question as well. I do think the louder the noise that the young can make and get those opportunities also creates further opportunities for the older people further down the line as well. So I think it's about, and I know that's not a brilliant answer, but I really think if we all make a lot of noise and really drum up that support, then those doors will start opening more.
Yeah, definitely. Suzanne has a question, and then I'll go to Phil, or an observation.
Thank you. It's both a question and an observation, I think. So there's danger in the Labour Party, and it came very, very quickly. The rhetoric around disabled people and getting people into work and disabled people not really wanting to work. So I took that straight to my local Labour MP, and he took it to Stephen Timms, who's the Minister for Disabled People.
Right.
And then the answer came back, and I'm going to meet with my local MP to discuss it, but nothing was mentioned at all about access to work. And I think this is the difficult thing. How can we as a group, and we need to do this because it's going to be harder because everybody thinks that Labour's more socialist. Well, perhaps it's not after what's happened, and we need to really get together and really push against this rhetoric that disabled people, it doesn't matter if they want to work or not. We should have disabled people valued in the community. And it's difficult because musicians in general, you know what the arts is like. People don't think arts is a real job. And that is sort of like generally for everybody. So disabled people have a myriad of barriers coming towards them that are actually probably bigger than Brexit and bigger than COVID, because we have a party that people voted in for change, and there doesn't seem that much change.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. And that rhetoric thing, I think that's what I mentioned at the very start. That's one example. Like, I think there was a lot of hope, and then what we've seen in terms of action is the very thing that is, you know, really more than surprised us. I think it's like pretty shocking, really. Any comments on that, Phil? I know you're going to come in. We've got the. Take the mic, yeah.
It's all part of the same thing, and you know, none of these are good news stories. But I know a fantastic pianist called Ashley, who many of us know and have worked with for years, known her since she's 14 or even younger. She's now preparing to go to conservatoire. I mean, she's more than good enough to go to conservatoire. And the question is not which conservatoire would be right for her as a musician, it's which conservatoire can actually look after her. That's the question her parents are asking, not, you know, where could she go? It's like which one could actually wrap around and provide a support that she needs, and also to live independently and all those things now. And that's really what her parents are very, very worried about. It's not, well, she should just be able to choose from the Royal Conservatoires and Guildhall and Leeds and wherever. It's just, that is just not an option. And so we're still looking at institutionalised, you know, accessibility and discrimination, frankly. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as Suzanne said, for disabled people in general, and then the double whammy about looking at this through the lens of music, and the music industry is like, you know, is a kind of another level. So you'd really hope that these government departments, DCMS, are talking with Stephen Timms and all these kind of things about these joined up matters, and then we've got a space that we can make some change. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, that's what I mean about it being really, really tough. Thank you for your thoughts. I'm going to move it on. Hold the Stephen Timms thought, because we've got a question about Stephen Timms at the end. So we'll hold a bit of politics for the end. Back to the panel. So we talked a little bit about embedding. So we've got programs, we've got projects, we've got manifestos. But I think this is a question about how, from a governance level, from an operational level, how the lived experience and views of disabled people are central to informing your organisation. So from a governance perspective, day to day, as well as projects. So this idea of getting kind of full immersion and embedding of the lives of disabled people in our work. And that's really the question. So maybe, yeah, David, I could start with you in terms of your organisation as Superjam.
Yeah, our curriculum is designed around learner engagement and feedback, not the other way round. So we run anonymous surveys, we run round table discussions, so that the students are really driving the curriculum forward. We're also embedding in far more life skills into the curriculum. We're embedding, obviously, English and maths, but in a musical way to make it relevant, because most people hate English and maths. I know I did. But it's really the students are teaching us,
right,
and how we support.
And then that defines what the curricula looks like.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really led.
It's really led by the students, yeah.
Right. So the team working with you, your workforce, that's part of the culture, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also having tutors and staff with disabilities on the team as well. So
right.
there is support there.
Right, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and has that always been the case, or is that like
No,
always a work in progress?
No, because I started this with my best mate as a bit of philanthropy, so there's been a big learning curve. We started with 6 students, so there's been a hell of a learning curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it hasn't always been the case, but it's constantly getting stronger, getting better.
Fantastic. Let's go along the line. B?
Yeah, so primarily we're a disabled-led organisation, but equally we serve the disabled community. So I know we've spoken a lot about artists, but we've not just got our artist network, but we've got our audiences, we've got our professionals. We also, as a team, have a really high percentage of disabled employees as well. And I think it's about looking through that lens of all of the different areas and joining them all up together. But equally, we do undertake regular research. So we've had our next stage snapshot, which outlines specifically barriers for artists around programs and policy. We also are hosting artist roundtables. We do roundtables throughout the year as well. But like I said, it comes from lived experience. But I think it's really important as well within the industry that if you've got a high population of disabled staff, don't assume that is the experience. That you need to consult further. You need to get an outside opinion as well. So it's that full circle for us as an organisation.
Yeah. So in a way, I always think with attitudes and everything, if this is the right phrase, you're leading by example, you're kind of role modelling what it can look like.
We hope so.
Yeah.
I'm joking with that one. But yeah, I always use a good example of that is my experience of being interviewed for the role that I'm in now.
Right.
And I give that off in training and say this is what we did and this is how we did it, because I never found a fit of working somewhere like I have at Attitude. And I think that's the thing to remember as well. I'm a disabled professional working in the field and I found a space there. And I think exactly what you said, leading by example, that's what we need to do. And if we're going to be industry leaders, we need to mirror that.
Yeah. And then you want people to follow that and do it themselves.
Yeah,
right?
and empower them to use a model that they can see and an example. It's almost like giving people not too much space to get out of it. If there's a lived experience example there, and there's also the guidance, and there's also space to ask questions, where does the problem fall?
Yeah.
Because we're opening this up to them, Yeah.
Rather than an industry partner or a partner who might be working saying, the worst example is where people go, well, we're working with attitude is
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
So tick.
But are you
but they
modelling
take
the
no
work that we're
but
doing?
take no responsibility
Yeah.
organisationally to change.
Exactly, and I think something that I haven't mentioned so far as well is the Live Events Access Charter that recently got relaunched, which is really exciting because it's exactly that. It's a framework for the industry to work to, and everything is there. It's ready to go. So when people aren't having good accessibility, it's like that's what you need to go and work to. That's kind of the gold standard moving upwards at different levels. And it's also like a peer-to-peer support network. Like, we're critical friends. We're not there to criticise. We're there to make things better.
Yeah, fantastic. Eunice and then Phil.
I'd say 3 ways. One, I'm here and I'm listening, and I'm your conduit to UK music and our partners. And I think being in rooms like this is important because I don't have all the answers. The UK music don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. Yeah. So it's important that we're seeing people in real life. So that's one way. The other way is that we run surveys and do research. Our last diversity report was last year, and I think we had about 25% of those that responded were from the disabled community. So we're hearing in real time what the issues are and where people feel they fit or don't fit in as well. And also, we do collaborate with lots of organisations. Attitude is everything. So we have a task force, a diversity task force, which has lots of representatives from our members, organisations, and specialist voices. Paul, at the back there, sits on that task force to give us the insights that have been gained and all of the wealth of experience that Attitude has and other partners as well. So, yeah, I think that's how we are able to glean that. And listening, I think, is my main thing. You just have to listen to people.
Thank you. And Phil?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo a lot of what's already been said, we do the surveys, that kind of thing. We have a young person citizens assembly for music, which is the format of a citizens assembly, which is presentation of evidence and information, and then interrogation by young people, and then outcomes of what they want to do and how they want to access music. So we do that each year. We're setting up a new advisory board this year. Our Together for Music festival, which is going to be in its 3rd year next year. Again, it's the title was decided by young people, and everything that happens is all led by young people and workshop leaders, their music leaders and special schools and those that are participating. So it's an ongoing immersive experience.
Fantastic. So we're coming to the sort of last few minutes when we can then have a break. So I talked about the Stephen Timms question. I'm going to try it slightly differently. So, I mentioned about painting a picture about what it could look like, the asset model. If we get this right, what would be a really bright future? And if you were to describe that to Stephen Timms, who is the Minister of State for Social Security and Disability, what's the future we could say it could look like? So is anyone up for giving, so you're in a lift with Stephen Timms, and you go, but if you get this right, the future with disabled people in creativity could look like that. Has anyone got like a couple of lines that you'd go, wow, yeah, we've got to do it? Great. And then maybe somebody from the floor. So because we know a lot of the issues, but why? What would look better? What would a lovely future look like?
And I really like how you reframed this question. Thank you.
Good.
So I was thinking about this, and I think I will revert back to our manifesto, one of our manifesto arts, which was about access to work. And I like the way that you've reframed that, because the vision is that if we get this right, and it's not perfect anyway, but if we get this right, you're enabling people to have a career, basically. You're also enabling organisations to create spaces and feel equipped to enable people to have a career. Imagine what that's like. Imagine what comes out of that. Imagine the lived experiences and diversity and more creativity that we're creating. Also, because this is where they sit, think about the innovation that comes out of that space for our country, because ultimately you're thinking about our country. So this one change enables that.
Well, we'll take that, I think. Yeah, take that one. I think there's somebody, great. I'll bring, you've got it. No problem. Yeah.
Hi there, everyone. It's James Risdon here I'm the access lead at ABRSM and a blind musician. This is a really big topic for me and many blind musicians, and I think my dream for access to work would be that it actually supported you to grow. So at the minute it feels like a very high branch on a tall tree, and unless you're doing quite a lot of work to reach a minimum earnings threshold, you get absolutely no support whatsoever. So there's a very, very high bar to entry. I mean, as we all know, music is an organic thing that grows out of one concert, one piece of work, one piece of one project, and it seems to me that the word is growth. So you can grow from nothing, and you might have a scalable sliding level of support. But actually, if you can demonstrate that and use that to do something else, that's how everybody else does music, right? They do one thing, and one thing leads to another, and one project leads to another, and one bit of learning leads to another. And that's exactly what we want to mirror for musicians with disabilities, it seems to me. So that access to work, I'm so glad this has come up, and I'd love to come and have a chat with you. But it's about putting in place support from the very moment that you decide that this is what you want to do. Might not be very much, obviously, because it has to kind of, we can't just give limitless support to everybody, but there can be a much more equal and fair model which mirrors the model that everybody else uses.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else?
Can I actually jump in with something?
Yeah, please.
So there's 2 points here for me. Number one, making personal independence, payment, and access to work. Like, it's the foundation is there. It exists. We've won part of the battle there, but they're not accessible practices. How can disabled people be expected to get them? And like for me, with my lived experience, I've got multiple different backgrounds and disabilities. I can't access PIP. And it's ludicrous to me that it's going to be made harder. So I think working with what we've already got and making sure those processes are accessible, not having a time limit on when it's used by, those small things can actually create a much more inclusive environment. But also, outside of kind of benefits world, looking back at the grassroots ecosystem, we need to put more work and more support into things that aren't just venues. It's amazing that the ticket levy exists now and that Music Venue Trust has lobbied for that. And I did put talent pipelines. I will change my language in future. The talent pipelines for grassroots artist development, and we need support for promoters, artists, crews, professionals. Like, it's a whole ecosystem, and that's what we need to push for.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. We'll take one more, and then we're going to have to think about wrapping up, I think. Andrew, yeah? Hiya.
Hi there, my name's Claire. I don't know quite how this is working. But I would say to Stephen Timms, can we stop the isolation of disabled people, and that's children and adults, and improve their mental health? Because I think by having access to music, including teachers that you can actually afford, and I'd echo what the lady from the RNIB said, that there's a lot of adults out there whose world suddenly changes because they lose something like their sight, their hearing, or those other things. They become very isolated. So please, let's concentrate on the mental health side of this as an advantage, because it's a big problem, as we know, in the UK.
Mental health and well-being, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. I think we've got one more. Sorry, Andrew, I'm keeping you from your coffee. We've got one more just behind, the last person, and then we will wrap up then, I think.
I just want to bring it right back to the beginning, something you said about being able to receive. So it's not about what people are able to do, it's are we ready to receive them on the other side. So I think I would say to the minister, think about your favourite band and your favourite song by that band, and what if it had never been written? Are we ready to receive the next generation of talent and make space for them?
Exactly. And exactly. And as we all know, those lived experiences make for better music, right? Because, you know, some banging tune is written with some banging lyrics about a lived experience which captures all our imagination. And, you know, the diversity of perspectives to write great songs is a kind of win-win as well. So I think, thank you I thought I'd try that. And like because I think where I was coming from is that just putting our heads for a minute in the minds of government people, you know, I'm not letting them off the hook, don't get me wrong, but they must be getting from all sorts of quarters, give us money, no, give us money, give us money. And maybe the industry's doing this, you know, different bits of the industry, give us money, no, give it to here, no. But actually what's happening less is painting a picture of what this future could look like, which really engages people, including government ministers. And we can go, and do you know what? That's the picture, and we can make it happen. We've got the power in this room to make it happen. You know, we'd have to do some work together to get it all up to speed in sort of like a music strategy, but that's where I think it could go. So just a few thoughts there. So, thank you everybody, amazing. Big thanks to the panel. Yeah, thanks for so much interaction. I hope that was what you were seeking. If it wasn't, speak to Andrew. If it was, speak to me. Yeah, let's go and have a coffee.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. I think if I saw the minister, I'd say, come to Access to Music. Guys, just to let you know, I want you to go and get pastries and coffees. We're going to start the next session 10 minutes later. We just want to reset the room and get the screen up there. So can I just have a round of applause once more again for our panel? Thank you.